Hey, welcome to Sharkfinger. It's Shadow here, and today I'll be showing you how to make a basic first-person controller in Godot. We will start by setting up a basic scene for the player to run around in. It does not matter how you do this as long as there's a ground for the player to stand on. You might also want to include a few obstacles like I did, but that's up to you. Now to start, we want to create a character body 3D, then as a child of the character we want to create a mesh instance 3D and set the mesh to a capsule mesh. Now, we need to add a collider to the character. There are two ways we could do this. First, we could click this mesh button at the top, then click Create Simplified Convex Collision Sibling, which creates a less accurate collider that would be very difficult to manipulate with code. The other option, which is what I'll be going with for now, is to create a collision-shaped 3D node as a child of the player, and give it a capsule shape. After that, we want to drag the character body up above our ground if it needs it, and finally we add a camera 3D node to our character body and move it to about head level. Now, we want to be able to move the character around through player inputs. We do this by creating a 2D vector and mapping certain directions to inputs. For example, if we want to move right, we press the D key. This means we want to give the D key a value of 1 on the x-axis because the direction right in Godot is positive. That also means to move left, we give the A key a value of -1 on the x-axis because left in Godot is negative. We then give the W and S keys their respective values following the same logic. Now, to create the logic for moving the character, we first need to create actions that are triggered when certain inputs are pressed. We do this by going to Project, Project Settings, Input Map. We then click in the box labeled Add New Action, type the name of our action, then hit Enter. Let's name this first action Move_Forward. Now we click the plus on the action, press the key we want to bind to that action, then click OK. Right now I'm going to use the W key. Then we repeat this process to create actions to move backwards, right, and left. After we finish setting all of these up, we want to make sure we have our character node selected. Then click this Add Script button. Rename the script to Player in the path, then click Create. In the script, we first need to know how fast we want the character to move, so we write @export var speed ;float. Then we want to be constantly updating the character's movement. We do this by using the physics process function with func_physics_process delta. Inside the function, we first want to get what direction to move the character in from the player's inputs. Var input_dir equals input.getVector, move left, move right, move forward, move back. Var direction equals open parenthesis transform.basis times vector3 input_dir.x 0 input_dir.y close off both parentheses dot normalized. These two lines of code use the input actions we set up earlier to determine a direction to move the player in and convert that direction from 2D to 3D so we can use it in 3D space. Next, we either want to be moving the character full speed if the player wants it to move, or slowing it to a stop if there are no inputs for moving. We do this with if direction velocity.x equals direction.x times speed, velocity.z equals direction.z times speed, else velocity.x equals move toward, and then pass it velocity.x 0 speed, and velocity.z equals move toward and pass it velocity.z 0 speed. Finally, we tell the character to move with the function move and slide. Now save the script. Now, if you have the character selected, you should notice that there is a value labeled speed in the inspector. For now, set it to 2.5, then save and run the game. The character you made should be able to move around properly now. Next, we will add jumping. Jumping is easier to set up than the basic movement, but often just as important. We do this by watching for the jump input, and when it is pressed, we add upward velocity to the player. There are multiple ways to do this, but I'm just going to show a basic approach. First, we want to go back to the input map and add a jump action, binding it to the spacebar. Then, back in the script, we want to know how much velocity we want to jump with, so we write @export var jump velocity ;float. We also need a variable to store the value of gravity in. Var gravity equals project settings dot get setting physics/3d/default gravity. At the top of physics process, we make the character fall if it is not on the ground with if not is on floor velocity.y minus equals gravity times delta. Otherwise, we jump if the input is pressed. Elif input.isAction just pressed jump velocity.y equals jump velocity. Then, in the inspector, there should be a new value called jump velocity, which we will set to 5 for now. Save the scene and run the game, and you should be able to jump. Last but not least, we need to be able to look around. Now, we do this by tracking the mouse movement and rotating the entire character to look left or right, and rotate only the camera to look up or down. Back in the script, we need a reference to our camera and a value for our sensitivity, which multiplies with our raw mouse movement to change how much it rotates for the same amount of mouse motion. @export var camera camera 3D @export var sensitivity float. Now we want to rotate the camera only when the mouse is being moved. We do this by writing func_input event if event is input event mouse motion. Then we get what direction the mouse moved. Var dir equals event.relative. Then we rotate the character and camera accordingly. Rotate y deg2rad -dir.x times sensitivity. Camera.rotatex deg2rad -dir.y times sensitivity. Finally, we restrict the camera rotations so that the player cannot look too far, essentially flipping their head to look upside down and backwards. We do this with camera.rotation_degrees.x equals clamp camera.rotation_degrees.x -70, 70. Now, we want to drag our camera to this slot in the inspector and set our sensitivity to 1. Then, save the scene and run the game. You should be able to look around by moving the mouse. You have probably noticed by now, but the cursor is always visible and is free to move off the screen. For some games, this is fine, but most first-person games hide the cursor and lock it to the center of the screen. This does not affect the camera motion at all and is simple to set up. We also want a way to free the cursor and relock it, so we will bind the escape key to toggle it. First, we go back to the input map, add an action called pause, and bind the escape key to it. Then, back in the script, we want to lock the cursor when the player first loads in, so we write func_ready input.mousemode equals input.mousemode captured. Next, to toggle the cursor when we press escape, we go to the input function and write elif event.isActionPressed pause, and then inside of that, if input.mousemode is equal to input.mousemode captured, input.mousemode equals input.mousemode visible, else input.mousemode equals input.mousemode captured. Then save the script and run the game. You should be able to see the cursor is hidden when you first load in, but if you hit escape, it toggles it on and off. Sorry that this took so long to get out. I took some summer classes and they took up more than all of my time. Hopefully I can be more consistent with tutorials and progress on whatever game I am making at the time you see this. There should also be a video out now that expands on this character controller, adding features like sprinting and stair-stepping to it, so be sure to check that out. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a good rest of your day.